I've been involved in pretty much every crime out there. When I took stuff, it was the only time I could pay attention. I brought a guy in my trunk one time to a meeting that I was trying to do the right thing, and
so you wanted a guy to go to what, like an AA meeting? So you
no,
threw him in the trunk
I
of
was
your
going to
car?
the meeting, but I was in the middle of robbing him, and he wouldn't give me the combination. So I threw him in my trunk, and then I was debating whether to be violent or to go to the meeting and try to do something spiritual. I ended up confessing in front of I mortified these people. Like, I used to keep a guy around me that stabbed people all the time because it made me look really good.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but he was my friend, but his main job was to look crazier than me, so I looked kind of normal. You know, I'm in a prison inside of 2 other prisons, which house all the, you know, death row inmates and ones that didn't have any more time.
Right.
And they were waiting to die. They said that the difference between their heaven or hell, the ones cutting themselves and the ones that had this peace about them, was...
Let me tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura can identify data brokers exposing your info and submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally required to remove your information if you ask them, but they make it super hard to do it. You can try Aura free for 2 weeks using my link. Aura also does so much more to protect you and your family from online threats that you can't see. It's really easy to set up, so you don't have to download several different apps to get things like parental controls, password management, identity theft insurance, and more. You get everything at one affordable price. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online so you can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. You can either let people continue to profit off of you and your private information, or you can go to aura.com/Matt to start your 2-week free trial, also linked in the description below.
So I grew up in Jersey. I grew up around a lot of people that were, you know, pretty laid back on laws and stuff like that. And my dad was a chemist, so we ended up in like Newark and Bloomfield and Camden. And, you know, growing up there, his friend was a cop. And I remember when I was a kid sitting in the back of the cop car, and they're in there robbing weed from the dealers, just taking it from them. You know,
the cop is robbing?
Yeah, the cop is. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
And I'm in the back of the car, so I'm picking up on this stuff. I don't know why I'm in the back of the car down in East Orange at night, but he's an East Orange cop, and you know, great guy. My mom called him Dennis the Menace. His name was Dennis, and I remember sitting in the back of that car thinking, these guys are in there, and somehow I knew they were taking stuff.
Right.
You know, and Dennis was talking my dad into it, and he was like, "I'm confiscating it. Don't worry about it." You know what I mean? I'm
Like, if it goes bad.
yeah, this is a legal thing. And nobody said nothing about me sitting in the back of the cop car, and I'm like hanging out, you know, and I was having a good time. And another time, he got asked to sit there and wait while a woman was dead, and they had to wait for, you know, something to happen. So he shows up there. He calls my dad over, and these two were clowns. He goes, "Yeah, pick anything you want. She's gone." And, you know, so I go down in the basement. I come up with a shotgun. I go, "I don't want this."
How old were you?
Yeah, I was about 8. Yeah, 7 or 8 years old. But those are like the earliest memories of when I look back on it, how laxed everybody was. And my mother, you know, she became a Jehovah's Witness, and my sisters, and they took all my toy guns away. So I had this like
Fascination.
oh
with it,
man,
like
I
that?
just had to have them. I was like, they broke them, you know, and it would bother me. And I remember being obsessed with guns, and I don't think I would have been if you know, they would have let me have my toys and stuff
Right.
like that. But yeah, they took that away from me, and I remember, like, you know, getting that shotgun. I was like, I want this, you know, and my dad was like, nah, we're not taking that, you know. And you know, just growing up, there was a lot of that. You know, they used to work for, when my dad didn't have when the chemist work would die down, he worked for these other guys, and they had a limousine cab service.
What do you mean? I mean, chemist, like, I would think like he works in a lab or something.
Well, he made varnish.
Okay.
He made Tylenol. You know, he was he went to night school to become a chemist, and he was really smart.
Right.
Like all on my father's side were really, really smart people, usually with addiction or alcoholism or something like that, all the way up to like founders of West Point and Dartmouth College. Okay. They were really smart people. There's like, but they couldn't do life
Right.
100%, you know. And my father was actually a good good-hearted dude, but serious drinker, and didn't seem to have much of an impact. But he blew up. The plant blew up down in Newark that he was working at, and he was in a coma for a couple of years, and it wasn't his fault, but
he was near it.
Yeah, he was in it, and he was in a coma for a number of months. But a good friend of his, he died in that, and when he came out of that, he went from a functional alcoholic to a dysfunctional one, I guess you would call it. So there was a lot of me running. When he came out of there, he came out kind of weak and decrepit. So I figured I had to be the man of the house. I bought my first gun at 11. I worked for a rubbish removal company, which was gangster owned, and it wasn't like like a flashy gangster. It was more like just businessmen. Yeah, that did rubbish removal, and they were serious, but they paid me pretty good. So I'd show up every day, and my mother, I remember her thinking my way of looking at things was getting corrupted by the people I hung out with. I learned at an early age, violence took care of a lot of stuff. One time they charged me too much. I was a kid doing rubbish removal. Probably illegal now that I think about it. I was like 11 or something lifting. I was like 220, 6'2", you know what I mean? At that time.
At 11?
At 11. I remember in 6th grade, I was 220 and 6'2". I'm 6'5" now and 350. But back then I remember being a big kid and I had no problem doing this work.
Right.
And so they were giving me like $100 a day cash during the summer. He was giving me 60, and then he said, "I'd buy you lunch." And then after the first day of buying me lunch, I ordered like 60 hot dogs. I don't know what it was. He's like, "I'm gonna give you 100 a day. You buy your own fucking lunch." He goes, "Excuse me, I mean, is it okay to cut?"
Fine.
Yeah. So I thought I got a raise, and we're working in Summit, New Jersey. Is kind of like a rich area. And I go in and buy a tuna sandwich because I'm on lunch break. So I buy a tuna sub. She charges me like $18 for it or something crazy. So he comes in there and just starts throwing shit around, and you ain't gonna charge this kid that much money for and I watched how they gave me the refund and let me keep the sandwich. Right. And I started getting the impression that if you just go and throw a big enough tantrum, people just give you what you want. Right. But I started digesting that type of information. And it did not help me when I moved to Florida. My mother seen where it was going. My dad had gotten better, but with the being blown up, but he gotten worse with the drinking. So she moved us down here, and at the time, 35 years ago now, 36 years ago, Naples, Florida had a thing with single parents. They just didn't want that here, and we had 3 of us living down there. And she kind of picked the place off a map and sold the house up there and moved down here. So immediately I had a pretty good first year. I did high school and all that. Not too much, not that I can remember, but I remember you said something about stealing when you were little. I remember one time taking my uncle had a bunch of Krugerrands that fell out of his pocket. And I took them and I went to go buy candy at the store around the corner. They call up and they say, "Hey, your son's got about $2,000 in gold trying to buy a Snickers bar. You want to come get this or whatever?" He was a nice guy. But I remember when I took stuff, it was the only time I could pay attention. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like I liked taking stuff because I knew it felt like weird. It felt like I had to take a shit or something. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't like taking stuff. Right. But it was the only time I was hyper sensitive to the moment. Like, it was the only time I wasn't living in my head. It brought me to attention. Okay. Yeah, fear of getting caught. So that was something that it was
kind of like an adrenaline rush. Maybe.
Yeah, well, it makes you pay attention. Like you when you're afraid of getting caught, hyper focused. Yeah. And I never am focused on the moment until these things happen. And then, with drinking too, that happened. With that too, you got to be in the moment, not be all self, obsessed. But I used crime as a way to get in the moment, and I didn't know it at the time. You know what I mean? You can't figure that shit out. But in hindsight, you sit in prison enough years, you start looking at stuff. You're like, what the hell was I doing?
Yeah, you know what I mean? You do a lot of that. How did I get
here? Yeah. How did I end up in this? I don't feel like I belong here.
Right. I notice a lot of these guys keep coming back. How do I not do that?
Right. Yeah. How do I not do that? So I did a lot of that. But coming down to Florida, I did pretty good. My first year, I had something to obsess about. It was wrestling. Down here, they made me wrestle. Up there, I boxed and played football. But down here, I played football, wrestling, and I even did track just because I needed something. because my mind was going crazy. We went from high, like sensory, you don't never have time to think, and things are always going on. People breaking in the house. Newark was a little crazy.
Right.
But when you're down in Florida 35 years ago, it's like slower, dead silent.
Way slower way of life.
Yeah,
right?
You can hear your brain. Yeah, you can hear your brain working. So I got into trouble that first year. Actually, my wrestling coach predicted it, and I had one state and regional. My first year wrestling, I did really good. I was like 315 pounds solid, and anybody in my weight class was like kind of round, fat.
Right.
I snapped one guy's rib. They shouldn't have been wrestling. They were just big guys, and they threw them in there. And I got drunk one night before regionals. I got this big competition the next day, and I go out and sneak out and get drunk, and nobody would do it with me. So I got some guy to buy alcohol. I got drunk, came into the thing, and they hand me a thing of noodles and garlic to get your energy up. I was about to shit my pants. I was like, what the heck? And I'm in this tight ass leotard, and I'm a big dude.
Right.
So I'm like, man, I gotta get this done with. So I get in there and I turn cross face the guy and I snap his rib. He starts screaming. I'm like, are we done? They said, yeah. And I ran and I'm trying to rip this thing off. They never had one that fit me anyway. And I run to the bathroom and I'm like, it's really tough to get out of that thing fast. But I don't know why. The night before I had something to do, I went and got drunk. It's like I tried to make it more challenging for myself. But these led on to that summer.
It wasn't because you were just anxiety and you were like trying to...
I don't think so.
No?
I just wanted to do something. I wanted something different. Like, yeah, I'm doing all this stuff, but I need a release.
Okay.
Yeah, and I need something different. And it was, it was just the beginnings of kind of living outside of society, but at the same time, I'm a hypocrite because I'm living in society.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the end of that year, my wrestling coach, we ain't going to have a team next year. I said, Coach, I'm a freshman. This is my first year here. I just won just about everything. And you guys just taught me all this stuff. He goes, oh, you'll be in prison by next year. I was like, what? I was like, and then at August, when I was sitting in prison, I was like, is that guy a fucking prophet or what? How did he predict that? Like, everybody could see that. Like, I had limitless potential, and then I was a hopeless, special case or something. And I would get those conflicting looks.
Right.
And I didn't know what that was. And I was sitting in there for the first time. Some cop, he harassed me, and I spun on him real quick and hit him. And I must have just hit his jaw just right because it broke. I had to pay that. I had to pay for that. And, they ended up giving me 5.5 years. I've never been convicted of nothing. Never did nothing more than that, taking my...
Let's go back to that. So how I don't understand that you're a high school student.
Yeah.
And a cop just walked up to you and started giving you a hard time.
Oh, no, that story was I was leaving at like 1:30 in the morning from a girl's house.
Okay.
And they said I was loitering and prowling. And at the time, I didn't even know what the hell that meant.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I already loitered and prowled. I left my girlfriend's house.
Yeah, I was leaving.
I'm done.
And they said they wanted to call her. And I was like, there ain't no way you're getting me in trouble with her and her dad. I was like, dude, I'm going home. I was like, you do what you want. And I went to walk away, and apparently that's a bad thing to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because at the time, I was just a cocky, I didn't know I was cocky, but I was like, this is what I'm doing. And I started doing it. And he horse collars me, like pulls the back of my shirt and yanks me back. And I just spun, and I didn't think, I just reacted. And I spun and hit him. And then next thing you know, I took off running. Next thing you know, they're all at my house. They're arresting me for aggravated assault and battery on a Leo or something, a law enforcement officer. And I'm like, so I go to court. My uncle's, he still owned a law firm at the time in New Jersey. And I called him and asked him what I should do. And he's like, just tell the truth. It's a fight, whatever. You're going to get some trouble. He's like, just tell the truth. And I was like, all right. Yeah, I was like, you're the professional. But he bonded me out, and he thought if I just told the truth, I'd be a kid. I'd get a smack on the wrist or maybe something. But they said, 5.5 years. Good luck, son. And that's what they told me. And when I told the judge, I said, Your Honor, I said, this was nothing more than a fight. I said, he started it, and I ran home. Oh, they gave me a fleeing and eluding too. And I was like, the only reason I have a crime is because you guys were harassed. I had all it was just crazy to me. And so my mother's in the back, and I don't know it. And he says, "Good luck, son." And I was like, "Yeah, thanks, Dad." And I'm being a smart ass on top of getting this 5.5 years. I find out my mom's in the back crying. I was like, "Ah, shit, I didn't know she was there." And excuse me. So yeah, I end up getting sentenced as a youthful offender. And as soon as I get to DOC, they won't recognize my youthful offender status. They sentence me as an adult.
Right.
They changed it from. They said that they're allowed to do that because.
They're in charge of housing you. So
housing.
They looked at you and said, "No, we can't put him in with fucking."
We can't do that. So they sent me to a prison. I ended up about 2 years in. I was collecting for guys because I didn't have nobody sending me money. So guys would pay me to collect for them. I would get stuff and I was pretty comfortable. And then this guard tried me and it was just too hot one day, and I ended up hitting him and knocking him out, and it was not good. They gave me 2 more years after that. Yeah. So yeah, I come out of prison. I'm pretty much hating the cops now, or all authority, and there was no reason for that, but it was just like a blanket hatred because I felt like I've been kind of done wrong. I'm taking no responsibility for the part I played.
Well, I was going to say too, the problem with moving across the country is that what's acceptable in one part, I don't think a lot of people realize this, and even in the federal system,
right?
Like you could get arrested in California for manufacturing methamphetamine,
right,
and get a couple years.
Yeah.
Same thing in a different part, still federal system,
right,
in a different part of the country. They'll give you 15 years.
Right.
And you're like, well, but it's just that's why the states are in control of themselves and their own sets of laws, and that's why even the federal system is broken up into districts, because every district is slightly different,
right?
And I was gonna say, and you're moving from an area of the country where they would probably shrug it off as being just a kid, who punched the cop and it went wrong and whatever, and he took off running, he was scared or whatever, and they might have been like, hey, there's a higher level of violence in this area, so we don't consider that as serious of a crime.
Yeah.
But in Florida 30 some odd years ago, it's a much different environment, and respect of the law is a huge thing.
Right.
And so so I could see you coming down here thinking, well, this isn't that big of a deal.
Right.
And in Florida they're saying, oh no, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
It was even the way you talk to the cops. You could talk to the cops a certain kind of way, maybe in New York, that you come down here and they're not going to take any shit.
Nah, not at all. Not at all.
So
sorry, it's like night and day because I remember cops where I was from, they would take their badge and gun off if there was a person who was being belligerent and wanted to fight. They wouldn't make it like a charge. They make it like a fight,
No, they'll just shoot you here.
Yeah, no, here they don't play. Yeah, and they were very much like that 35. They're a little better now. Actually, there's a lot. I'm actually friends with a lot of the same judges that try to give me life, send people to work for me now. So I know they've changed and grown a little. The one judge, her dad tried to give me life, and it was funny. I was sitting at a function, and the mom of the judge, the woman judge, is sitting next to me, and then her husband, the other judge's dad, he tried to give me life, and she asked me, she goes, "Oh, how do you know my daughter?" And I was like, well, I said, well, your husband tried to give me life in prison. Your daughter sends people to work for me and says, you got to go around this guy. I said, so, kind of like part of the family. She starts laughing. She goes, yeah, he was a little rough, but that's what I was, they weren't getting my sense of humor down there. Yeah, they definitely weren't. Yeah, they didn't have a sense of humor about it, and they were kind of ruthless, but like you said, they had a certain way of doing things that worked for them. And I come here like, screw Florida, I'm from Jersey, not knowing, just being a kid and just being cocky. And it took me years to catch up on that, though. It took 3 more prison bids, and like finally I realized, I was like, these people ain't playing down here. They're trying to give me life for 20 years now.
So in the first prison, your first prison sentence, you ended up hitting the guard. You got an extra 2 years. How much total did you end up doing on that?
I ended up always doing day for day. I went in when I was 15 and got out when I was 20, just turned 22. Yeah.
Holy shit. No time off at all?
Nah, well, every time I got a little bit of, they had this thing called CRD at the time, and they were giving guys like a year a week. but I couldn't get it because I had a violent charge. Then they would have another thing called like 60, 20 or 60, 40. I don't know. They were giving out all this stuff that just didn't apply to me. And then every time I got a little bit of hope of doing the right thing, I had to bust somebody up or do something that it took all that away. I spent a lot of time in the box. You know, I was always getting everything just kind of revoked.
There's no AC in fucking state prison.
Oh, no, it's horrible. Yeah, they got these fans that run. And when you're in the box, it's even worse. You got like a little window. At nighttime, you're like grateful for a little breeze.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's rough. You can go and take a shower. You come back, you're still drenched. Yeah, it's not cool. At that time, I remember hearing about guys in the feds thinking, man, I wish I could go there. You know, and because you hear you got AC and then jobs that pay, like I was telling you on the phone. And, I know it's only like 10 cents an hour, but it was something, you know.
Yeah. Well, listen, there were guys that would, they'd have to do like state time and then they'd have to come do federal time, like go straight from state to prison. These guys would, you couldn't knock the smile off their face for 6 months. They were they were so happy. They were like, bro, you got AC, the food's good, and they were just so ecstatic. You can watch movies, you can go in the rec yard and do this. They got this, they got, you're just like, this guy's nuts. Like, you're telling me I could go back for seconds right now? Yeah, you can go back for seconds. Yeah. They're not going to say nothing. No. Like, no. Well, and then they get there, they start eating, like looking for the guards. You're like, bro, nobody's going to kick you out.
3 minutes here. Yeah.
You can sit here for 2 hours if you want and eat. Are you joking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a vacation, I heard, but a lot longer stays, I heard, too.
Oh, yeah, it's outrageous. Yeah, you'll get 10 years, and you get 2 years in the state or 10 years. And it's funny, my mom sent me an article when I was in prison that's called Bring Back the Lash.
Right.
And they had done a survey of, I don't know how many, let's say 1,000 inmates or something.
Right.
And they were saying, would you rather go to prison or be basically taken out into like the town square and whipped with a lot, like whoosh, whoosh. Like, would you rather do 5 years or get 50 lashes? Listen, everyone, it was like 100, it was like out of 1,000, there was like 995 that said lash me.
Yeah.
I would rather be lashed. Right. And it's not that it's, it's just that, I'll heal from the lashes, but I can't get another 5 years off my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
it's gone.
So when I joke about how, it's way better than the state, but the truth is that people would rather be taken out and just lashed than have to go to prison at all.
Right. So, yeah. One day was too much. You don't realize when you're younger, like, you're giving up 15, like when my mom passed, that's when it hit me that I spent 15 years away and didn't have that time with her, just phone call. Every time she came to visit, I was in the box, so they would send her away. You know what I mean? There was never not complications for all that time. And then I didn't expect her to die so young, but that's when I felt it. When you start thinking like that, it's like, oh man, because when you're younger, you're just like, it's no big deal,
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it too much. It was kind of like I said, it was like a camp for me. You could take out your anger on anything, and nobody cares. And as far as I knew, it was pretty much like a lazy man's heaven, like my dad said when I was a kid. He called from Caldwell jail one time. He was like drinking and driving or something, and I said, "What's it like in there, Dad?" He goes, "Oh, it's a lazy man's heaven." And it's true. It's like you got no stress. Well, I didn't have any stress, but a lot of people, they get in there and they think it's so horrible. But I was like, no, out there was horrible growing up. Not knowing how to do stuff. And I don't know. I got accustomed to it. Until I learned how to live out here, I didn't know how much I missed,
Right.
Yeah, I did not know. Compounded ignorance, they say.
Yeah, I get out here, and it's like it's amazing how much free entertainment there is out here. Everywhere. It's just like if you want to watch Walking Dead in prison, then when the sheet comes out, you write on the sheet, "Hey, Saturday, Matt Cox, I want to watch this," and then you're basically divvying. And let's face it, if a guy who's 6'2" walks in and says we're not watching that shit, and turns the channel, what am I gonna do?
Yeah,
I'm like, of course, I don't know why I even put it down there.
Yeah,
of course we're gonna watch fishing. I love fishing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's like you come out here, like you got YouTube, everything's just I understand there's advertisement, but it's essentially essentially free. You could turn the channel when you want. Like
Right.
it's, you know, it's just such a, compared to prison, it's just such a joke living out here. Like,
Yeah, it's almost like a stimulus override,
as long as you want to, as long as you want to work.
yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta work. Yeah, that's the one thing I thought I was gonna be rich when I got out of prison in '08, and I was like, I'm gonna be rich because I don't have a $5,000 a day drug habit, and I'm thinking the money's gonna start pouring in any minute now. I was like, I think I got to get a job.
Right.
There's nothing going on here. So I started picking furniture up, putting it down, and eventually turned it into something. But
So first prison sentence, you get out.
yeah. And at that point, I had never, I drank a few times, but I never really got into using anything. I've been stabbed a couple times, and I got some pain pills, and and pain pills feel nice, so I started finding stuff that felt pretty good, and that was due to the anger I had too, because I got out and started playing semi-pro ball, and I remember I would trip on acid and play semi-pro ball. And it was crazy. It was like seeing the craziest stuff, and I loved it. I was having fun with it. I don't know how good I was, but I got picked up by a couple pro teams that wanted me to come play, and then I get indicted on something. Our team was 12 convicts and a cop. I think a cop was on our team too. They made him quit. He's like, you can't be with all these guys playing football. We're in Overtown in Miami, and they're like, no, you can't hang out with these guys. But I started getting involved with all these different things. When I got out of prison, I had friends over on the East Coast, and I had all these people in Naples that wanted drugs, and I had friends I made in the East Coast. I was like, man, I know where all this stuff is, so I started bringing acid over and coke and all kinds of stuff, and I never really messed with anything hard until slowly but surely it started, partying a little more and a little more. At first, it was just a way to make money, and it helped my friends out, and I kind of felt like I was screwed over, so I had the right to do it.
Right.
Yeah, I felt entitled to selling drugs because you took away any chance I had of getting, still taking no responsibility
I was
for
gonna
anything.
say.
Yeah.
It's just justifying.
Justifying, total denial, and eventually, really crazy. Yeah, you throw a bunch of drugs on that, and it makes for a wild, story that you don't really remember, only in bits and pieces. But I remember going to prison a lot. That was it. And then I would get out, run hard, and end up back in prison. But I've been involved in pretty much every crime out there, short of messing with kids or anything like that. I pretty much got everything. You know what I mean? From kidnapping to, whatever.
Okay, so how did you? And what was the second prison?
The second prison bid was about 4 years, and I actually went to a prison that had AC. That was nice. It was a privately owned prison. George Wackenhut owned Moorhaven, not too far from here, I don't think. But anyway, I ended up there for 4 years, and that was for 11 sales and manufacturing heroin charges that they dropped 9 of them. I could have beat all of them, but the CI that was in my case that set me up,
right,
he got his head blown off while I was in county jail.
That's upsetting.
Yeah. I didn't wish that on him, but he was snitching, so people deal with that type of stuff.
Things happen.
Yeah. So I ended up going, and there was one, my buddy Pex, who he got 30 years. They found a couple Uzis and kilos at his dad's house. It was his stuff. He went and took the blame for it and got 30 years. And he asked me to make sure these kids didn't get, messed up or anything. His 2 kids with this girl. And so I was chilling, watching over her. She gets a cop to come sit down and buy stuff. I was like, I don't know this guy. I'm not selling him nothing. And so she did it right in front of me. And I could have beat that charge too, but she would have lost the kids. So I took 4 years on the house just so she didn't catch that charge. When they asked, when he said she handed it to him, I said, I handed it to you. I put that there. I made her do that, And then so they got happy with 4 years because they were about to lose their whole case.
Right.
The CI got killed, and then they didn't have much there with the thing because I never handled nothing. But I ended up taking that one. And I ended up in a pretty decent prison and a work release center. It's crazy how I ended up in work release because you're not supposed to go there with my kind of stuff. And but I did end up going there, and a friend of mine gave me a job over in Lauderdale at Pompano at the Work Release Center, and they tried to give me the rest of my time on paper. And I was like, nah. I said, I just did 4 years. I'm not doing whatever they called it at the time. I think it was called CRD or something, control release dates. And you have to report and all this stuff. Right. So I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. Send me back. And Joe, my buddy Joe, he just passed away about a year ago. It was real sad. But he was working with me, and then he had a heart attack. But he was a guy from Jersey City. That whole family died. But they all came down here. One of them, I don't want to skip around too much. But anyway, he gives me that job. I tell him to send me back behind the wall because I'm not doing any paper. Now, At this time, I had hired 11 guys underneath me. They're like, you're not going anywhere. You're going to finish this. And you're getting too many people. You know, I was getting the full $209 a week you give them out of your paycheck is like the maximum. I had 11 guys doing that. So they didn't want to lose the income. So I was like, well, I'll be in Treasure Island down on 103rd in Miami tomorrow at a strip club. I said, you can come get me if you want to. I said, but I'm not doing no paper. And they did. They came and got me. Right. They said, you better not. I was like, yeah, all right, I'm telling you. And I was hard-headed like that. I don't know why I couldn't do paper, but I just felt like they got enough out of me. Right. You know, and I always felt kind of entitled to some kind of rights. And maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, but I was like over the top with it. Like if you pushed it, I'll push it with you. I mean, we can go all the way to the bus out. So they sent me back to South Florida and then to DeSoto, and I did the rest of my time and got out.
How much time?
That time I did about 5 total with the year of paper I was supposed to do on paper. So I got 4. I did 4 in prison. Right. And then I went to work release, and then I would have had a year on that paper or whatever.
But you said I'd rather just be behind them.
Yeah. And then I went back to DeSoto and I ended up leaving there. That was a maximum security. And I was in and out of there in Hendry back in the 80s and 90s.
What was the kidnap? You said there was...
well, I would take drug dealers. Like I got eventually when I started using drugs, I was using so much because of my size, my tolerance went right through the roof. I had got stabbed, and then I had a gallbladder operation. They gave me these pills, and I really liked them. So I called in the doctor, and I was like, yeah, I spilt them down the sink. He goes, nobody ever spills the antibiotics. He goes, how come they always spill the pain pills? I was like, I don't know, man, but I need more.
They're so tiny.
Yeah, they were good. And I remember feeling like I want to feel like this all the time. Right. And I was pretty much hooked at that point. So anyway, my drugs got worse. And the thing about drugs is you could do whatever you want and you ain't got to deal with your conscience when you just, use drugs. So my tolerance went through the roof because I pushed that envelope all the way. And so I couldn't afford the drugs I was doing. I didn't have a job. I couldn't sell drugs anymore because I would do them all. So I just started robbing drug dealers. And that was going along pretty good, you know what I mean? And
because of course, that's the logical. That's the logical next step.
That's what I came up with. Yeah. I'm figuring they're doing wrong, I'm doing wrong. We'll just see who's better at it, you know. And I didn't care. I just so one time I told Julian is one time the DEA caught me on camera. They were watching these guys, and it was on New Year's Eve, and I had a guy with me, my boy from Jersey City. That he was on escape from Rahway, and he was down here, and he tells me this guy, what was his name? He was like a dude who did 5 years for armed robbery. That's all he told my boy, so he came with us. And we only had one gun, so he held the gun. I said, look, dude, I'll handle throwing people around and all that. If anybody pulls a gun, shoot him. Right. And so he's like, yeah, I got you. Now, he never told the story of what that armed robbery was. It was a finger under the shirt trying to rob a drugstore for some pills. So the guy was a punk, right? You know what I mean? Like he was just he
was an idiot. Didn't have a gun,
yeah. He wasn't an armed robber, and I couldn't believe Walt just took his word for it. And so anyway, so he knocks on the door. He gets the guy to open the door, puts the gun in his face. The guy starts closing the door on him. I go, what are you doing? I said, shoot that mother. Right. You know, and he wouldn't do it. So I ripped the door open. I picked the guy up, threw him through a table. The whole time this thing is on being watched. And I'm like, and I didn't know this, but I go in there, I get everything. I get out of there. We jump in a car, And the guy's like, this is like a comedy now because he doesn't know how to ride a stick. He jumped in the seat. It's a stick, you know, and he's going, rah, rah, and I'm going, what are you doing? He goes, I don't know how to ride a stick. I said, what are you doing in that seat? And I throw him in the back seat and I jump in and I got us down around the way. And I pulled right up on a cop too. It was weird. And I couldn't figure out where the lights were. That I came out of prison. They started doing this thing where you turn the, yeah, and I was like looking for the lights. I'm like,
we used to pull it.
Yeah. You pull this thing out. I'm looking for that, and he's like, and so I flip the lights on. I'm right behind this cop. Flip them off, and I said, "Is that the lights?" And I'm sitting there flashing a cop, and you know I guess he don't give a shit. So he takes off. I take off. 2 weeks later, this kid who's under surveillance, not a kid, but he's a man. He calls my boy and goes, you ain't gonna believe this. I just been indicted from the DEA and they've been watching my house and they seen Dan Thayer come in there and rob me and they won't do anything about it. They told me, we know who that is. We don't care. So I took that as, now my boy was like, so wait a minute, you were trying to snitch on my, you know, he's a good friend of mine.
Right.
He's like, oh, you robbed me. And he doesn't know that my friend set this whole thing up.
Right.
All right. So the dude's like a little, you know, whatever. And he's a mark. And so he gets all mad at him, wanting to stab him because he's trying to snitch on me. But then he tells me the story, and I'm like, so wait a minute. So the DEA don't care that I rob drug dealers?
So that's just carte blanche.
Oh, man, I just went all out. Like, I started going to different states and all kinds of stuff and just setting up, you know, not trying to hurt people, but sometimes it get a little crazy. But, yeah, I remember one time trying to hit a house, and the real DEA showed up. And I had a girl on the inside unlocking the door and everything. And I finally brought a friend of mine with me. He wanted to go with me. And I knew he wasn't a snitch. He did time before and stuff. So I was like, yeah, you can come with me. So we're in the woods. I got DEA drab on, like trying to look like a, you know, official. Yeah. And so I got the woman about to open the door. Next thing you know, the real people hit it. And he goes,
the real DEA
hit that house. The guy had stacks and stacks of cookies and cocaine and cooking up, all kinds of stuff. And he goes, what do we do? I said, we leave. It's like, we're out of here. That was the most sensible thing I did in that period of time. Because I would have got shot to shit. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm just taking the evidence. Get out of the way, guys. You know, I didn't have that kind of, you know, that's like a real ballsy person. I didn't have that much, you know. If I can't slam stuff around and whatever, I just, I was like, we leave now. And he got busted. That guy got busted. But so that went on and on. Like we went, it's funny, that guy too, he got clean for like a 7-month period. He's dead now too, but pretty much everybody knows dead.
I was going to say.
So
how does the kidnapping charge come in? So, I mean.
Oh, no charge for kidnapping. Well, no, I never got caught for kidnapping.
Oh, okay.
Shit, you might have to edit that. I've never been. Yeah. I've never been. I've been arrested for murder. Didn't do it. Indicted on 6 different homicides. That, you know, when you were talking about the guy being in jail and sitting next to somebody confessed to the murders that I was in jail for. Now at that time I had armed robbed a drug dealer right in front of the police station. Beat him right in front of the police station. They had me dead to rights.
Right.
They arrested me for armed robbery of a drug dealer. Right. I couldn't believe it. I was like, nah. I was like, the DEA doesn't care about this type of stuff.
They told my buddy.
Yeah, they told my buddy. They don't give a shit. Yeah, I'm an idiot. You know, so they offered me a deal saying if I did this lie detector test and did this hair and blood sample, they wouldn't convict me of the armed robbery, which I did do, right in front of the police station. Like the guy I robbed him.
Okay, so I don't. Okay. After the DEA thing.
Yeah, you're
still continuing to rob places.
Oh yeah,
rob drug dealers.
Now
how long does that go on?
On and off for years. Like I would get caught for stuff, but it would be stupid things. You know what I mean? Besides the murders, and I had a home invasion too. But there was like, you know, I would get away with a lot of stuff. I walked away from a home invasion in '94, which they, you know, really screwed up. But I'm grateful, you know. But I would get stuff like that in tying into robbing drug dealers. Like, you know what I mean? Like there was a lot of excess damage. They couldn't get me for the things I really did, but they would get me for a bunch of other stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can't get him for the home invasion,
Right.
but we can get him because we pulled his car over and he did have drugs on him.
Yeah.
So we arrested him for the drugs. We
Oh
can't
yeah,
prove
all
that
the
it's-
time. I was always getting caught with drugs on me. Anytime they searched me, I always forgot I had something in my sock. The last bit I did was because I had a Xanax in my sock, and I just threw out 3 guns. I was like, oh man, I really thought I got away with something. They're
Right.
trying to give me life because of the priors and all the, they resentence you here over and over again. And they use a point system. Well, yeah, point system. So, yeah, I had too many points, and judge was trying to give me life at that last time. But that's when I ended up at death row being a.
So what happened? What happened with that? So let's get that's what your last lengthy prison sentence.
No, that was only a couple of years. I had like 2 years. The judge offered me. The judge said, "Why ain't I giving you life today?" And I said, "Well,
so I understand how'd you get arrested for that?
Oh, I got arrested.
What was the crime? What?
I was out at a house. I was loading up somebody's tools, and I remember them, and I was like, because I was on Xanax.
Right.
And when I'm on Xanax, I start just loading stuff up to go sell it. And I don't know what the hell's wrong with me, but on Xanax, it's like, it tells you the dumbest shit to do.
Right.
And I remember loading up the tools at this house and going, you know what we can get for this? He goes, yeah, I bought them. They're my tools. I was like, don't worry, I'll break you off. Like, there was no sense to my thinking. I'm telling the guy that is letting me chill at his house and get high that I'm loading this stuff up. Don't worry, I'll break you off for selling your stuff.
Right.
And in my mind, I'm thinking this is a come up, and he should be grateful. And this is how crazy I was at the time. And so I dip out, and somebody talks me into going and getting him cocaine at like 2 a.m. And he's dead too now. But him and his girlfriend start bickering, and I can't handle that shit. It bothers the hell out of me. So I told him, I said, you know what? You two get the fuck out of the car. They're like, this is my car. I said, well, not right now. I'm going to get you this coke. You're getting out. So I left him at a gas station. I got 3 guns on me, a crack pipe, Xanax in my sock, which I had a script for. But they're not supposed to be out of the bottle. Anyway, right. I'm driving up the road. I'm like 2 minutes away from going to get coke, and the cops start going behind me. And I'm like, shit, I can't get caught with these guns. So I start throwing them out on 41. 41 runs all the way up to Tamiami, is Tampa to Miami. But so I'm on Tamiami Trail, throwing guns out, heading east. I get rid of the guns. They don't seem to see them. I have the one thing in my sock. I forgot about the crack pipe that kind of fell down. So I get a paraphernalia and 1 pill. And the judge tries to, throw light. I've been on bond, going to court, and I kind of carjacked those 2 people. When you look at it, like that's, it wasn't like,
yeah.
But I did throw the guy out physically and told him to shut his bitch up. Like, that's how I was at the time. I was like, shut her up, dude. It's gonna be hard to walk away from.
Some
this.
people would consider that as carjacking.
Yeah. So it was like,
people are sticklers.
Yeah, well, the people that are real sticklers and they like to.
Did they call the police and say this guy just took off with my car?
I don't think so. I don't think this dude would have did that. Maybe she did. I don't know, but they were on me like pretty quick, and plus I couldn't drive.
Yeah,
it was like all Xanaxed out, and I remember like going to jail. That was the thing I was telling you about. They still did ink at the time,
right? And
I just was so high, I kept rubbing my face. So when they did the ink, I was just like, I'm tired. Let me go lay down, And I wanted to go to sleep. I was so tired.
And his mugshot has like all this ink all over his face.
Looks like I'm all bruised up. I had people calling me, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "I'm fine, dude." I got ink all over my face. So it was a rough night. I knew I shouldn't have went out that night, but there's always a gut that tells you do not go, and I went, and I blame them for that. Yeah, that was their fault. They got thrown out of their own car. I got in trouble, and so anyway, that last thing, I'm on bond, and my dad at the time says, my friends, from like the 60s or 70s, he goes, this is how they got off heroin back in the day, because they take methadone. So we went to the doctors at the time were just handing stuff out.
Yeah.
And so we went there, and I bought, I told the guy what was going on. He basically told me what to say. And my dad did the same thing. And each one of us got 320 40-milligram wafers a month. So I got 640 of them.
Right, because your dad doesn't need them.
No, he don't need them. So I took them all. And he's like, we could sell something. I said, no, we can't. I'm eating all of them. And so I did this for a year on bond. And I'm eating like 5 bars a day with them. And I'm doing a bunch of coke and stuff. But so in that year, I commit like because I think I'm going away. You know how you get that like hopeless,
Yeah.
it don't matter what I do type thing. It can get worse.
I'm already going to go for 10 years. If I get caught for something, they'll either throw it in or it will be 11.
Yeah,
what does it matter?
Might as well ride it out. Yeah, right. So I did that for a year to the point where I wasn't getting caught for nothing. When I went in to see the judge finally, I was like, Your Honor, I said, I need about 2 years to go lay down. I said, will you give that to me today? And he was pissed. He was like, why ain't I giving you life? You know, he's like, you're a career criminal. You're always here, this and that. I said, look, I had a script for that one pill you guys found. And I said, I can get all that and I can have my lawyer beat this charge, or you can give me 2 years today and I'll take it. Right. And it was like 2 years, 2 months. And he was pissed, but and I told him, I said, I'm on this. And one of the comments I did read that somebody said it was impossible to be on 800 milligrams of methadone a day. I was on this for over a year. I don't know if they count the wafers as milligram, 40 milligram wafers, 20 a day with about 5 bars a day. Now, people think this is impossible to take. I chewed up 10 of them as soon as I woke up, and then about another 10 throughout the day. Every day I ate 20 of them.
Right.
And so me and my pop got these bottles. I just went through them every month, and I didn't have any to sell. And I got no the kick was 65 days long. I had 4 seizures, probably from the Xanax. You're not supposed to really get seizures from the methadone, but I don't know. You're not supposed to take that much. That's like most people take like 120 milligrams a day. That's serious methadone habit.
Right.
I, for some reason, couldn't be affected, or I was affected. My liver was enlarged and my heart got enlarged, but that was later. But but I didn't feel the effects. Like it wasn't doing nothing. It was making me normal. So that day the judge sentenced me. He goes, "Why aren't I giving you life today?" I said, "You could try that." I said, "I really want to lay down and kick this methadone habit." I said, "This stuff is bad." He goes, "So you're high right now?" I said, "Man, I ain't been high in years." I said, "I'm normal right now." I said, "Do I look high to you?" "I'm not high. I feel normal." And I said, "But I am on a ton of methadone."
Right.
So he let me do the sentence anyway. So, because I guess they got to ask you if you're on.
Yeah, you're not technically. You're not supposed to be able.
You're not supposed to be able to do it. So he sent me away, and then like within 2 or 3 weeks, I'm still kicking, like violently kicking. My body's rebelling. I'm on buses. I end up at Rayford, and I'm in a prison inside of 2 other prisons, which house all the death row inmates and all And then I'm at work. I end up with this job. At first, I was kicking, so I told him, I said, "I ain't doing nothing. You could throw me in a box or whatever. I ain't doing nothing for about 2 months." And I said, "When I get my strength back, you'll get your work out of me." They just left me alone. You know what I mean? And then they gave me a job. So I was cool with that. By the time I got up walking around the track and got my weight up a little bit, I was fine with working, you know what I mean? And then you just get into a routine and do your thing. But it was weird. Being on death row was like, well, not sentenced to death row, so nobody doesn't think I'm full of shit. But being able to go all down Key Wing and all the wings where guys are like hopeless and eating their own feces and just sick shit going on all the time. 1 death a week about, regular. Somebody hung themselves. Somebody got lit on fire. Somebody cut their dick off. It was crazy. One time they sent me down there to find a penis. Yeah, I wasn't doing it. So they were like sending me down there with a bag of ice and a plastic glove on. I'm like, dude, you're out of your mind. You better go down there yourself. And he was like, it was like a drama between 2 homosexuals or whatever. And he was sticking his thing through the thing, and he bit it off because he found out he was cheating on him. It was like, what do they call that shit? Days of Our Lives, like a soap opera.
Death row soap opera.
Death row soap opera, and that's what it was. And those guys are deadly serious about, it can go intense. But I remember some experiences from just dealing with all that. There was a guy writing me at the time who was really all in my corner. Through that guy Walt that I told you that he died, but he was clean for like 7 months and showed me it's possible. This is a dude who I got a job because he wanted to be a barber. So I got him a job at my friend's barber shop, and he stabbed the guy because he didn't like his haircut. So this is the kind of guy he was. Very temperamental, to say the least. And we ran together for like 20-something years faithfully. Like if we did anything, we did it all together. And he was a good dude, but he was a little psychotic. And so anyway, he showed me for a period of time, in 7-month period of time, he got his life together. We got his daughter back. He had a credit line. He married a counselor in prison. The counselor that was in prison, he ended up marrying her. She was a good girl. Yeah. So he scored. Everything was great. And he goes, I'm just going to sell weed. And I was like, dude, I said, I don't think that's a good idea. I said, I don't know enough about this recovery shit, but you seem to be doing really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At that time, I didn't know a lot about it, but he introduced me to a guy. He goes, I can't understand what this guy is saying, but he'd be good for you. And the guy, he really like kind of tricked me into changing my whole life. Right. Yeah, he was way smarter than me. And anyway, I ended up living on his futon with him and his wife in that house for like 6 months or something like that. And I'm 6'5", the futon's like 4'5". So I got legs hanging over, my neck would wake up with lines across it. And I stayed on this stupid futon because the stuff he was like, the concepts he was breaking down to me, they gave me hope that I can change. And he separated who I was from what I did. Right. I was able to do that.
And this is the guy that was writing you?
Yeah, he ended up writing me on that last bit because I had a relapse, and then I went out again. It was usually over my daughter. Like I'd have my daughter, I'd do good. I'd lose my kid, and I just didn't see any reason to do good. Right. I didn't have any worth. And so at this time I'm there. In fact, when I was there learning this stuff, I didn't learn it till a lot later. But he was telling me things, and his wife, I remember I kicked, and he would take me to these meetings and just, took me around everywhere, just showing me how to live without the use of drugs. Because I had to learn that again. You know what I mean? I used to not do any drugs, and then I got hooked on them. So he's teaching me how to do all this stuff, and his wife's like, my appetite came back. So I'm eating them out of a house at home. Right. They are not rich, and the wife starts, nagging about it. So I'm like, God damn it. So I go in the hood in Fort Myers and rob a drug dealer. And I don't take the drugs. I bring the money back, and I go, here's some money. Shut the fuck up. I need to hear this guy. I didn't, I was nicer about it, but I was basically like, shut up. It's just, I know I eat a lot. Don't worry about it. Right. And so I gave her money. She was like, oh, you won't hear a word out of me. So she was like a little crazy, but she's a nice lady. She was just like, I just want the money. I don't care what's going on. Yeah. And, but he, on the other hand, he would write me every week. He'd send like these, he would write a little bit every day, but every week he'd send me like a 20, 30-page letter on, what books to read and stuff like that. He had me reading a lot of St. Francis and, just guys that got outside of themselves, you know what I mean? And and that my problems were of my own making from selfishness. Like you were saying, that one guy that had all that money and he was doing this stuff, his greed got him cloudy in the mind and made him do dumb things. Whereas if he had a clear mind, he would have made better decisions. So you're almost powerless to make good decisions when you're clouded by a driving force, a deep desire to do something, and you don't care what happens.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think Colby heard me say this the other day. There was a guy in prison named Red Bull who legitimately, well, they called him Red Bull, right, because he was actually in there for selling Red Bull vending machines on what's called a business opportunity scam that he was running. But anyway, he went to trial, got 15 years, something like that. So this is a guy who legitimately could make $2 million a year by himself, just legitimately doing what he does. But if he could illegally make $2.5 million, he'd go ahead and do the $2.5 million. It's like, you're not okay legitimately making $2 million. You've got to turn it into some kind of a scam to make an extra $500,000. Right. And he just would, it's like the same thing. Like you could make money legitimately, and not risk anything, live the rest of your life. But if I do this, I can make a little bit more. Right. Yeah, but you're sacrificing everything. Right. But in your mind.
Yeah, that's what, when you were describing those definitions of this and that kind of diagnosis. Yeah. The egocentric has no choice but to go for the more. Right. You know what I mean? But if you know there's only so many resources and everybody's got to try to get along, and that you can't just go. Like I learned from from the guys I grew up with. You smash on anything except for your family, your people.
Right.
You know, and I found out later that these guys weren't 100% loyal to that. You know what I mean? But it took me going and doing it first, where like you could stub your toe, or my mom could stub her toe, and you're having a heart attack, and I'd mush you to get to my mom.
Right.
You know what I mean? Who's just got a stub toe.
Right.
That's how I messed up my wiring, thinking like that.
Right.
Yeah, just egocentric. Like I can't not, do good by her. Screw you. I don't know you. You know what I mean? Like that's how it was for a while, and I wasn't like that. But learning that way and then doing that way, it caused derangement. It did cause derangement.
Didn't you the other day say to me when we were talking on the phone? You said, "I'd take a bullet for my daughter, but I wouldn't go out and get a job."
Right? Yeah, I'll die for her.
Right.
That's easy, but I won't live for her.
Yeah,
yeah.
I thought about that a lot. Like
Right.
I mean, literally, like people typically say stuff to me, but that's been since you said that's
Yeah.
been playing through my fucking mind like 3-4 times a day. I've thought, fuck, like that's such a great way to say it.
Yeah, I did. Well, I just don't like hypocrisy. Like, and when I say it, I'm not judging it. I'm just saying I don't want it in my life. It doesn't make me. Once I know I'm living a lie, I can't do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I could lie to anybody, and I could do whatever. But lying to myself or not really sticking to the code, that's what broke me about a lot of gangsters and all that.
Yeah.
Like when I started realizing their hatred and everything was all based in fear, I couldn't deal with it anymore. I thought these people were courageous. Right. You know what I mean? And I had to get out of it. But with my kid, I thought sucking it up, being a man, not asking for help, all this stuff was the way to go. But like chumping myself and asking how do I do stuff or whatever, this is how my brain was talking to me at the time. Like, dude, you can't do this. What the hell? So I'd rather give a noble attempt, go to prison and all this crap where I'm not there.
Right.
And I didn't know I was doing this at the time. It was like hidden from my awareness or whatever. But I'd kill myself or I'd kill myself trying to do stuff. All I had to do was get in line, be like people, learn how to do stuff, and do that so my kid knows how to do that.
Right.
And that was my whole basis of my turnaround too. Was back in 2008, I came out. It was kind of a recession. I joked about it's your fault, but anyway, I came out into a recession. I started picking stuff up, putting it down, just working. Yeah. But my real job was to only do what I would tell my daughter to do and not do what I would tell her not to do. That was my only job because most people were scared of me at this point. So nobody was going to be like that one guy that died who helped me out a lot.
Right.
I had a lot of, trying to do the right things, but also being a little crazy. I brought a guy in my trunk one time to a meeting that I was trying to do the right thing. And
you wanted a guy to go to what, like an AA meeting? So
no, I was going to the meeting, but I was in the middle of robbing him and he wouldn't give me the combination. So I threw him in my trunk and then I was debating whether to be violent or to go to the meeting and try to do something spiritual. I ended up confessing in front of him. I mortified these people and told them, I was like, I'm trying to do the right thing here. And I was a little out of my mind. My mom was dying at the time. And I go, I'm trying to do the right thing, but I really don't think this guy deserves it. So anyway, he's in my trunk right now, and I can't figure out whether I want to let him go or beat the shit out of him.
Are you in like an AA meeting?
Yeah, at that time it was an AA meeting, yeah.
Did they think...
Nobody snitched on me.
Did they really realize, like, he's really got a guy in the trunk of his car?
Yeah, no,
they did realize
they were terrified, yeah. Yeah, they were terrified. Yeah, those are the same people that wrote me when I was up in prison. They're like, we're so glad you're on your way to doing the right thing. And they're very encouraging. I ended up going to NA, though, but they were really nice people. I still go over there and talk to them sometimes. I always say sorry. But, I got offered a job at Hazelden one time. And the lady was praising me because I had to go in there and speak for a commitment. Bringing some hope to these people and stuff. Kind of like what you were saying you do with the, telling people this is a crime, this and that. Yeah. And so I go in there and do that. They offered me a job. This lady's like singing my praises, saying how great a guy I am. And one of the workers, the woman that was in that meeting She goes, oh, that's the guy that came to the meeting with the guy in his trunk. And I never felt shame before because the people I hung around with, that wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, they laughed about it.
Yeah, it was it was not a compelling story. But with these people, I felt like, oh man, I was like, that was a misunderstanding, total misunderstanding. I mean, he did not need to be there. I didn't really think I should put him there, but I had to anyway. And then I didn't get the job, so I didn't want the job, but I liked when she was saying nice things about it. Made me feel pretty good. So, and then that made me feel pretty shitty. It was the first time I ever experienced like shame and admitted it. Like usually I'd knock somebody out when I got any feelings like that. I would just, instead of working on myself, I would just get rid of the people that said bad things. You know what I mean?
So after you got out of prison, you worked on death row.
Mm-hmm.
You got out.
Yeah.
Which was what that was the last time, right?
That was the last time. Back in 2008. I've been out ever since.
And you lived on that guy's futon for a while?
No, that was before.
Okay.
Yeah, he died. Well, when I got out of that bid, he was been writing me the whole time. This was after he helped me and back in 2004 or 5 when my friend was clean. He helped me out immensely. He planted ideas in my mind that didn't flourish until later. But he wrote me during that whole bid. And when I got out, I said, as long as I got my mom and this dude, I'm good. So I got out. My mom said, come home. I said, no, I'm going to a homeless shelter. I said, the truth is I'm homeless. I need my inside to match my outside. I'm not coming home. And I built my way up from there. But when I said that, all I need is this woman and this sponsor. It was a sponsor at the time. They both started dying of cancer at the same time. And I was like, if there's a God, dude, because I wasn't going to God, but if there is a God, I was like, this is pretty stupid. You know what I mean? This is a dumb idea. The only two people keeping me to be remotely safe, and you're killing them both. I was like, so something's like predestined for me to be a screw up. That's how I started thinking. But so anyway, I'm going to hospice up in Fort Myers for Rick, and then I'm, helping my mom on putting her. She's just whittling away. Now she had cancer back my second bid, went through it, and by the time I got a visit where I wasn't in the box, she looked fine. So I thought this was going to be that again. She was 56 or so or something. So I thought this was just going to be that again. I was like, don't worry about it. We'll just do this chemo shit and you'll be good. And everybody got scared to tell me the truth. Like, everybody kind of told me, nah, and she didn't want to do it. Like in hindsight, I could see she didn't want to go through that treatment. She only did it because she was afraid I was going to go off and do bad again. Since I've been out of prison and talking to Rick and dealing with him, I've been doing pretty good. I started lifting stuff and putting stuff down, and then I worked for a company that gave me 4 warehouses, and then they put me in business because I ran his stuff pretty good. So I ended up going into business for myself.
Right. This is the moving you were doing. You were moving.
Yeah. I was working for a bunch of designers at first, doing installs and decking places out, putting artwork up, and I'd work day and night just doing this. And then I do move jobs because the guy let me use 2 of his trucks at the time.
Okay.
He goes, yeah, just use them. And then he caught me in Tampa one time. He's like, I met in Naples,
Right.
I'm leaving to Tampa. I'm going. And I come right back and go to work the next morning. So I work all day. Then I work all night. That's how I paid off that job, the cop. I paid off anything I owed. I never had credit at that point. I never had credit before. So I had nothing there, but I had like hospital bills. I've been shot. I've been stabbed. So I had a lot of hospital bills I didn't pay. I paid all of them. I paid everything, and my credit's through the roof now. But that's how I did it. I would work all day, all night because I didn't like debt.
Right.
I paid restitution. Anything I owed, I paid. And so I get to about 4 years of doing good, and I realize my mom's not getting better. You know what I mean? She's whittling away. It took 18 months for her to die, but she's like whittling away. In the last 6 months, she was kind of like a vegetable. Like she was there, but nobody was there.
She didn't want to do chemo.
I don't think so. When I look back on it, she was they had this question, and I'm still out of my mind at this point. Even though I'm clean and doing the right things, I had no idea how off the track I had gotten with drug use and crime and all that stuff. So I couldn't pick up on normal things. Like everybody else kind of read this and nobody told me. So, and I was maybe in denial about it. So I'm shooting towards her getting better. And they had this thing where they questioned me and they said, what would you rather have for your mom? Quality of life or what was the other question? It was like two things. And I said, quality of life, no doubt. So they were trying to come to a conclusion of whether they should just let go and have the last few months without this chemo.
Right.
And I was drawing it like, you're going to do the chemo, you're going to be great, it's going to be quality of life.
Right.
I totally misread the whole thing. And plus there was a lot of fear. Like, without that woman, ain't nobody going to accept me. When I was wanted for murder, my dad was shot out. I was like, Dad, don't tell nobody I'm here. I was only in my house for a minute. But everywhere I went, they were all over. So my neighbor calls the cops. My dad's out there with a lawnmower, and he's a little off. He's like, oh, yeah, he's inside. My mom goes, he's not here. And I'm hiding behind a shower curtain with a pistol like this. And I'm like, God, please don't make me shoot this fucker. I was like, I'm not going to jail. I'm not doing this. I'm telling you right now, please make him walk away. I'm a big dude behind a little shower curtain, and it's only open, like, I didn't close it all the way because I didn't want him opening it. So I just did it enough to cover me. I see his boot. And he goes, he's not here, and he walks out. There was 40 cops all around. I would have been shot to death if I would have did something right there. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I wasn't going to. And I had a phone in my hand calling my buddy, come get me. And my mom's like, pretty much lying. She's lying for me.
Yeah.
He's not here. He's not coming here. Get out of my house. And so when she was dying, I was like, ain't nobody on the planet going to accept me like that lady. If I was wanted for murder, she was asking, well, what did you do to make him kill somebody? It was your fault. You know what I mean? And even though it wasn't good acceptance, it was acceptance.
Right.
So it was crippling too. And it's funny because I never thought to do good or really work on myself until she passed. You know what I mean? I would have loved to do it for her, and I tried of my own will. But it didn't really happen for me. Like, I didn't put my back against the wall and say there is no choice. I got to do good until I got that concept that whatever I do, I pass down to my kid, my actions.
Real quick, I think we skipped part of it was when you were indicted and arrested for a murder that.
Yeah. Triple homicide.
Right. So what happened with that? Like what?
There was a guy, John Ballard. He just got released too. He's out. He actually asked me if I was going to hurt him. And, but he, I guess he don't look like me, I don't think at all. He's like a dumpy dude, whatever. So he's in there for a crack pipe or something. He's got a year in the county jail.
Okay. At
this time. I'm in jail, and I think I'm going to prison. I can't remember why I'm there. I think I'm on my way to prison. So there's this guy called Heart Attack. We call him Heart Attack because he's always faking heart attacks. And my dad's in the block next to him. He's drunk, and still, making fake alcohol or whatever. And so they're in 4A and 4B, the misdemeanor and then the felony. This guy, John Ballard's doing a year in the county for a crack charge or whatever. This is a year after the murders. I'm in.
What was the murders? There were 3 people killed.
Yeah, beaten with a bedpost and stuff. There were. If you look up John Ballard murders, he beat up his aunt or something and 2 other people.
And they died.
Yeah, and they died, but there was like 30 people saying I did it. And I was like, I don't even think I was in town at the time, but I know I wouldn't beat up no woman or I just knew it wasn't me.
Right.
Yeah, no matter how messed up I got, I knew that wasn't me.
So you're in jail. Sorry.
So I'm in jail and I'm facing, the armed robbery, which I didn't do. They had picked me up in St. Louis for the murders. I got shipped from the fugitive block in Clayton County to Naples, Florida, back to Naples. So at that time, I was trying to, be there for my kid because I knew I was going away for at least 40 years for armed robbery because they were charging me with an armed robbery instead of a drug dealer getting robbed. And I was like, man, I can't believe they're doing that. So I called this lawyer down in Naples to retain him. Me and my dad are talking to him. The guy snitches on me, tells him where I'm at, the lawyer. And he's like a well-known lawyer down there. He makes deals with it's very corrupt, very corrupt. Like he'll get a couple guys off and he'll give you this guy.
Right.
So I guess I was the guy who got given up, and he goes and tells him where I'm at. And so anyway, I end up getting sent down here. It takes about 2 months on transcore. And I end up in the county jail. And this guy, Heart Attack, is the roommate of the guy who killed these 3 people. And the guy's got like 2 days left on a year. He's scot-free. Nobody even thinks he did it. he confesses to this guy who's a snitch and a fake heart attack guy,
right?
Funny guy, whatever. He wouldn't tell on people like me or my dad or nobody,
right?
But he'd tell on whatever to get out of trouble.
I was gonna say a multiple murderer.
Yeah. So he didn't tell on him. He wasn't gonna tell on him because he was wondering. But then he knew I was arrested for it. So I'm in another block waiting to do a hair and blood sample and do a lie detector test for these murders. And he goes up and tells my dad. My dad's still, I guess he got like a little bit of wet brain or something. So when he stops drinking, he's still a little shot out.
Right.
So heart attack tells him, hey, Mr. Thayer, this guy just confessed to the murders that your son's in the other block for. What should I do? He goes, if you're a rat, do what you do. I don't fucking know. He goes, my dad shot out.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So your dad,
my dad's
your dad's telling the guy basically don't say anything.
No, he's saying that if you're a snitch, you're going to do what you do. You know what I mean?
Go okay. Snitch. I thought he was saying, don't say anything. Like, my fucking son's first. You got to go tell him.
No, my dad was a firm believer. I one time handed him 180-year PSI for 11 sales and manufacturing charges before that CI disappeared or got killed or whatever. And I handed it to him under the door, and he looks at it. He goes, "Oh, we got leap year coming up." He goes, and you got 3 months in. 180 years, you could do it, son. He always believed in me. You know what I mean? So he goes, "You want a cup of coffee?" And he hands me a cup of coffee under the thing. At this, like, he would do it with me. Like he just had full confidence I could handle whatever was coming down the pike. So when this guy asked him, I know it sounds like he's ruthless, but you just got to know his sense of humor. You know what I mean? He really had full confidence. I mean, from the time I was like 3. He was just like, that's Dan the man. Let him do whatever he wants. He was a little nuts. But anyway, so this guy tells him that. My dad says, well, if you're a snitch, go do that. And so it goes throughout the jail that we know it's John Ballard. Next thing you know, I get transferred to the block. And he's like, hey, because I already did the hair and blood sample. They kind of knew I didn't do that. They were going to let me go, but they didn't let me go yet. So I end up in the block with this guy. And he goes, hey, you're not going to kill me, are you? And I was like, what? I said, who the fuck are you? I don't know who you are. And he goes, I'm the guy that you're in here for these murders. And I said, I should kiss you in the mouth. I said, I'm about to walk right now because I took a lie detector test and proving I didn't do the murder. They dropped an armed robbery, which I did do. I said, you're a piece of shit, but I ain't got nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? And so I left it at that. And then the guy ends up beating the charges. Yeah, he goes to prison for 3 murders. I mean, they had him dead to rights, but they fucked up the thing so bad, he ends up getting released. Like, I just heard about it like a couple of years ago. But anyway, that's all. Oops, sorry, that's all in the past now. But yeah, there was like 22 people that signed things saying I did it, and I was like, this is crazy. And then they tried to indict me on the murder of the CI in my case, and I was in jail when it happened.
Right.
So, like, they were always trying to do stuff like that, arrest me for stuff, and then.
Why did the 20 people say you did it? Do you think it was just 20 people so they knew you?
Yeah, they all knew me. I was actually
just trying to get you off the street.
Yeah, I was a terror. So I was hiding out in the Everglades in Everglades City, and I know a bunch of people down there, but they all ratted on me. I was hiding out down there, except for like one girl that I know now today. She was a stand-up person. She didn't say nothing, but they pretty much got everybody down there to, I mean, it's funny. There's statements that they wrote were like, oh, he confessed to this and he did that. And anybody that knows me, I mean, even if I did do something, I wouldn't talk about it or nothing. You know what I mean? And that was because I was always, worried about stuff like that. Even doing this, like, I always wonder, I'm like, man, what if they bring this up? And then I'm like, who gives a shit,
Well,
it's
I
all
mean,
done.
The statute of limitations is,
Yeah.
all these crimes are so fucking old. Like,
Yeah,
unless you're saying I committed this murder doing
Right.
this at
Yeah,
this
yeah,
time, like
yeah.
that's, or what is it? There's only 2 things with no statute of limitations: murder and espionage, or something like that.
Yeah, I think, any capital crime, murder, home invasion, stuff like that.
Home invasion doesn't have a statute of limitations?
I don't think so, but you could check. I think because of it being a capital offense, like carjacking was for a while, and then they changed it because all those guys were getting killed down in Miami.
Okay, so now you got out. You started a moving company. Eventually, you started a moving company.
Yeah. I did it for about 2008 to about a number of years. I did it without being official. You know, I would just do it for
Just get a truck.
word of mouth. Yeah. I had a couple of trucks and I was using those, and then I was renting them, and then I was like, you know what, I need to make this official.
Right.
So I went and got my LLC, and then a friend of mine, he's dead now too. He was a good, everybody's crazy. But he filed my stuff for me because I was intimidated to go down. And it's funny, I wasn't scared to, die all the time, but I was definitely terrified. The first time I got health insurance, I didn't use it for a year. I paid cash everywhere I went. And when they found out I had it, because I was afraid to hand it in and then them tell me something like I'm doing something wrong, and I didn't have the right answers, so I just didn't use it. Yeah, so I wouldn't use it. And then a year later, they found out. I asked this guy, I was like, how do you use this insurance? And he goes, you just hand the card to the lady, and that's it. I was like, get out of here. Really? And so I went and I handed it to her, and she's like, oh, you've had this for a year. I could go back and, I said, no, let me pay full price for my stupidity. It was like a couple $1,000s for visits. I had like bronchitis or something. I would just pay cash. Yeah, because I just didn't know what to say to it, and I didn't want that, what the hell you been doing all your life type thing coming up, So I didn't learn a lot of, normal shit. I had to pick it up. Now I found out you can YouTube everything, which is embarrassing. Right. I could have just been YouTubing all this shit.
I YouTube.
Yeah, you could YouTube everything. Yeah.
Just like when Colby came in and I said, how do you do this? Like I was when you texted me, I was about to YouTube something on Final Cut Pro, and then that's why I'm.
Yeah, man, it's incredible. I still call 10 people like now because I know everybody doing everything. So I call 10 people and I strike up a conversation, and I'm trying to soak out the information of what I want while I'm talking to them. So it's not just like I'm calling, and it's such a stupid game I play. And then eventually I'll just be like, yeah, how the fuck do you do this? Yeah. And they'll be like, why don't you just YouTube it? And I'm like, shut up. Yeah. And I started doing it.
I'll YouTube stuff too. I'll YouTube stuff as like I wait to the last minute to like call Colby. Yeah. Or call Danny. Yeah. I'll call them and I'm like, listen, bro, I tried. Like I want to let them know I tried. Yeah. I YouTubed it. I did this.
500
I did that.
things
like,
I did.
Wouldn't call it because I don't want to be that guy that you get the thing, you're like, oh, this fucking guy. Yeah. He's always calling me, asking stuff. And then the worst thing is when they're like, okay, see the 3 buttons? Click that. Go down 2. See that where it says that? And you're like, no. Yeah. Click that. Okay, we're done. And you're like, I'm such an idiot. Like, how did I not?
You can't see it. You just can't see it. They're more practiced at it. Or I couldn't see it.
Well, especially not even starting the process till you're 50 years old.
Right. Yeah. Our brains are stuck.
Right. What's intuitive to these guys?
Yeah. Still, when I was a kid.
Did you ever see that video? There was a TikTok. Right. Where an adult, basically some guy who's probably in his 50s, goes to his 2 kids that are at 12 and 14 years old or something, and gives them a rotary phone and gives them the phone number, says, dial this number. Yeah. And the discussion that they have and trying to do it, and it's just like,
it's out of their realm. Yeah, it was kind of cool seeing them get stumped by that. Though. Yeah.
That's me
trying to do that.
That's me trying to use my iPhone when I first got out of prison.
When I first got it, I remember asking my daughter, "How do you text?" Yeah, that's like the silliest thing. It's like, how do you text people? Yeah, I still don't like that. It always gets misinterpreted. You know what I mean? I gotta learn how to write better. But all right, so back to Ballard and beating that stuff. It got me out of that trouble. And then I'm trying to think.
Well, yeah, we kind of jumped around. So then you eventually got out of prison. You started
I started a moving company.
Yeah, I started a moving company, and now
and a demolition. I did a lot of demolition. That's how I learned how to put stuff together, was taking stuff apart. And that's how I learned everything about construction, was just destroying it. Gently. And I ended up demoing the prison that I first went to, Hendry Correctional, for a it's kind of secret, but they had they were teaching what do they call them, communication specialists, how to kill people so they didn't get overrun, like these Canadian communication specialists, they would get overrun by the enemy or whatever and get killed. So these special forces guys were teaching them that. So I demoed the prison and turned it into a playground for them. And I wasn't allowed to take pictures of that one, but that was one of the biggest demo jobs I did. And it was so strange being there at a place that I spent so many years at, doing so much crazy shit, and then being there running a crew of 32 guys and just be able to come and go as I wanted to. I mean, the girl I was with at the time, I had her on the razor wire fence. She's like, you would never touch that fence. You know what I mean? Like, like I was sitting there, you know, swinging on it or whatever, like jumping on it. And it was just a total different outlook, you know, from the hopelessness of being a youth. I didn't even know I was hopeless at the time, but being a youth and not being able to leave there, and then running a crew and making really good money.
Right.
Yeah, good contract. But
it's funny. It's always funny to my wife, you know, when we go to pick up her daughter, we drive right by Coleman. But the prison I spent, you know, 13 years, and I drive by. It's like I'd never seen it from the outside.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, you don't even know.
You're like, oh, that's what that was. Yeah. That was a concrete factory. I used to see this little building in the, you know, and
a friend of mine from New York wanted to see the prison I was in. I was showing him Rayford,
right?
And he goes, "How come you don't know which way to turn?" I'm like, "Dude, they never let us out." Yeah. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I could have been like, you could have told me I was in Missouri.
Yeah,
like, I only know I'm in Florida because my mom said the prison's an hour north of Tampa. Like, I don't know where I am. I've never walked out. I don't know what it looks like from the outside.
It's like, sensory deprivation or something.
Yeah, your whole world is in this little tiny spot. Yeah.
When you see it from the outside too, you're like, oh, that's so weird. Yeah, it was a gray day too. I remember seeing the gun towers and everything when we went there. I was like, I don't know why you want to see this place, but you wanted to see it. Yeah, it was a pretty gloomy place.
Yeah. I remember, we would be in the rec yard at the low. Well, in the medium too, actually, this happened in the medium too. You'd be in the rec yard and you could hear them, you know, because the prisons are so close together. Yeah. Right there. There's only maybe a parking lot or two between the two of them. And you could see like the guard towers and stuff from the low. You could see the guard towers. And then, the difference between the low and the low and the medium and the penitentiary is that these guys are locked down half the year. Yeah. So they would let them out. And sure enough, within a day or two, it's, you hear the sirens and get on the ground, get on the ground. Then all of a sudden you hear, you pow, pow, you hear the concussion grenades. And you're sitting on, I'm whatever, I'm, hundreds of yards away, and those concussion grenades make you drop. You're like, holy Jesus. And they're talking about, you will be fired upon. You will be fired. I'm like, God, thank God I'm at the low. Yeah. Those guys, they're crazy over there.
Man. DeSoto was like that too. It was like night and day, the separation. Guys that were able to work. And South Florida too, I remember they didn't have the what was that stuff, the mental patients take, Thorazine. They ran out of it, and these guys were like throwing guards like they were rag dolls, and they had like super strength. It was crazy, and the whole block was going crazy. One guy ran, he jumped on the razor wire. They had to use a helicopter to get him out. Oh my God! Yeah, it was nuts.
I was talking about that. I don't know if they were, but, they eventually what ended up entering in the last probably 10 years is, that synthetic marijuana that, they call it Tucci. Yeah. And they it obviously, it just makes these guys nuts. And I mean, they would strip down naked and they just start running
a hole in their brain.
Yeah. They start running around the compound. So you got eight COs trying to grab some guy who's naked, running around. And they, like you said, they got psycho strength. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just,
like PCP used to do to make him like superhuman.
Yeah, and they'd grab this guy and he'd be on the ground and he'd be screaming he's on fire. Right. So you're like, he's insane. Right. He stripped it. This is a grown man, just stripped his clothes off, running around the compound with the cops, screaming he's on fire and trying to put out the fire. And you're like,
this is not going to end good.
Right. And the other inmates would tell themselves like, man, he got a good batch. Yeah. That's what I want.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you want? What are you doing?
They're attracted to it like moths to a flame. Yeah. You just don't know how to do it.
Yeah. You don't know. He can't handle it. Like,
yeah. That's a good batch right there, where you think you're on fire and you're superhuman strength.
You'd walk in the bathroom, some guy would be on the ground flopping around. And you're trying to swim like on the tile, and you're like,
good stuff.
Guys would be like, man, that's that good shit.
That's how they used to do with their heroin too. If somebody died from a bag, it'd be in the newspaper, and there'd be 100 people going to that bag, just because that guy didn't know how to do it. But that would give you the
stupid.
yeah.
What's wrong with people?
Yeah. It's crazy. It's a driving, like, you don't think, like, you know what I mean? These are people that are probably just as intelligent as anybody else, but you can't tap into your thinking ability. You're just obsessed. You're fixed on it.
Right.
And so it gets more progressive, and eventually you start running around like you're on fire. There's like a bunch of like true. When you were saying true crimes, I was thinking I'm not really qualified for true crimes. It was more reacting and needing stuff and just making dumb decisions. But there was a lot of, like, you know, criminals. They were always a lot smarter than me. You know what I mean? Like, I was kind of like kicking the door and throw everybody on the ground.
Right.
Yeah. And I didn't like stealing, because if I robbed you, you knew I did it. You know what I mean? If you didn't know I did it, then I had to walk around worried that you were going to find out, and like, I'm a punk, I can't tell you that I took your shit. You know what I mean? Like, these were the stupid rules I started to form,
right,
being deranged. You know what I mean? That it was better to just let you know. And then my conscience got so bad and there wasn't enough drugs to settle it, I would have to talk people into being okay with me, Rob. You're okay with me taking this, right? Like, it would be deadly serious. You know what I mean? And I couldn't leave until I was convinced that you wanted me to leave with your stuff.
And the guy's 5'3", looking up at you, 6'5".
I mean, there was all kinds of people. Yeah.
I'm embarrassed you have to even ask me that. I thought we were friends enough to know.
Take the car too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they used to have some. Well, in Naples it's a lot nicer, but in Miami it was a little rougher. But in St. Louis it was rough. But they would have these parties down there in Marco Island and Naples, and they would just talk about me robbing people. And I would be like, this is not what I want to be known for. At the time, it was funny.
Right.
But then when you get a little older, it's like, this is ridiculous. All I'm known for is just taking people's shit.
The guy, I forget his name, like John Pulitzer or something. The Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah.
Right. So, he's actually the inventor of gunpowder.
I thought that was DuPont. Is it? Yeah, is it Pulitzer?
I think it's Pulitzer.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right. I read a story on DuPont and how they started. They were just manufacturing it.
Right.
Blew up a lot of places.
I was going to say, so it was, and I could be wrong about this story, but I'm pretty sure I'm accurate. It was reported to the newspaper that he had died, but he hadn't died. Right. So one day he reads the newspaper, and it's his obituary.
Right.
And what he reads is basically the man responsible for coming up with like gunpowder,
right,
which has, destroyed more this than any, is responsible for killings, like just butchered,
right,
the creation of gunpowder.
Right.
And he read it and he thought, this is my obituary. Wow. This is what I'm leaving behind. Right. And then so he So he turned around and came up with the, Pulitzer Prize and the what is it? The wait, what's the peace? What is it to be? Nobel. I'm sorry. I think it's Nobel, the Nobel Peace Prize, not Pulitzer, sorry, the Nobel. Right. So then he came up and he funded like the Nobel Peace Prize, and I'm sorry, not Pulitzer. I'm wrong. So the Nobel Peace Prize, and so he spent the rest of his life like trying to clean up.
Yeah.
What he had never really thought about. He just thought, I came up with this invention or this chemical or whatever, this process, and not thinking, hey, I made some money in this, and not seeing how the effect that people were really looking at him, and spent the rest of his life fixing that.
Yeah. That's one of the revelations I had, was that I can't. Like, I have a responsibility to do something, to live to my potential. That's what I learned from the guys on death row, the ones that didn't have any more time.
Right.
And they were waiting to die. They said that the difference between their heaven or hell, the ones cutting themselves and the ones that had this peace about them, was how much they lived to their potential, how much did they help others live to theirs, and how they treated everybody. So I built my whole thing about, my daughter only doing what I would tell her. It was just somebody I loved that I wouldn't give bad advice to.
Right.
So I started taking it. And since then I've had, hundreds of people. Like, all I had to do at first was just not punch a cop, and everybody's like, Dan really turned his life around. That's how low my bar was at first. But then it, like, year after year, it's gotten, to where, like, judges are, sending people incorrigibles or whatever, anybody even close to that, they somehow get a hold of me, and I start working with them. And a lot of them work for me. But what happened was, when I learned that lesson, I didn't have a life or death sentence. When they transmitted that message to me and I seen the peace they had, I did like that guy, he read his obituary, and there was nothing he wanted to, be grateful about. So I've been working on it and didn't know it, but it took about 6 years of doing it before I realized what I was doing. And I was evening out the scales, like you said, clearing up the past. And I did. I paid everything I owed. I deal with people fairly. I got, multiple things going on, and people count on me, like, a lot of people,
right?
And, all around the world, pretty much. I got, like, people that call and stuff like that, and now I'm starting to travel a lot. But one of the things I did want to emphasize is that I was deemed incorrigible by the state of Florida, beyond correction. And then I was deemed a sociopath or whatever, one of those nice titles. And I was told I was bipolar, and I was put on lithium. And I'm not on none of that stuff, and I'm not saying nothing's wrong with that. I got a lot of mental illness in my family. But I haven't needed anything just by taking an honest self-appraisal and doing my best instead of worrying about, the results of that.
Right.
And like they said, live to your potential. So every day, every year I grow, and my network grows, and the influence grows. So my point to all that is, I couldn't shake people. No matter what I did, some people liked me and wanted me around, and I caused a lot of destruction.
Right.
Due to fear and worrying about being found out and all this stuff. I caused a lot of destruction. Today, everywhere I go, it gets a little better. And that's possible for anybody. I've done it with, like, hundreds of guys.
You do the life coach?
Yeah, life coaching. And then, I sponsor people for free, and then I life coach, like, families and stuff like that. That I just tell them, if you get results, and it's done better than my moving company,
right?
And that moving company does really well. But yeah, it definitely, it wasn't my goal. It was just that you can't just work with one person, because really it's the relationships all across the board. It's counterproductive when you go to try to help somebody and everybody thinks he's the problem. Well, all you had a part in that. You know what I mean? So it's hard to work with somebody, get them better, then they go back into the environment, and then they're sick again, and they become destructive. Mm-hmm. And everybody's blaming them on how good they're doing or how bad they're doing, when in reality it's they're comparing what they're doing wrong to what he's doing wrong, so that looks bad. Like, I used to keep a guy around me that stabbed people all the time because it made me look really good.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but he was my friend, but his main job was to look crazier than me, so I looked kind of normal. That's when I look back on it, I was like, man, and I couldn't find that guy anymore.
Right.
Like, I got to the point where I was that guy that I just couldn't find the guy anymore that made me look good.
Yeah.
So I had to get good.
It's like playing poker, and there's always somebody's the fish, and it's like, if you can't if you can't figure out who the fish is, you're the fish.
yeah. So yeah, I just like to always end with that even though the thing goes crazy, there's tons of stories of could be comical if it wasn't real, and my life, you know what I mean, and it was at times comical, but it was really just out of desperation and not knowing I had a choice.
Right. Hey, I appreciate you guys watching. If you like the video, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get notified of videos just like this. Leave me a comment in the comment section. And I have a Patreon. It's like $10 a month. That's nothing. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and see you.